Welcome back to the channel. In this video, I'm gonna be doing something a little bit different, just throwing something in the mix. And in this video, I'm just going to, I guess, discuss something that Tyron Woodley brought up. And Tyron Woodley, the thing he brought up was, is Khabib top 10 all time? Well, Tyron Woodley said Khabib not even top 10 all time. But neither is Tyron Woodley, and that's clear. And clearly, Khabib ranks higher all time than Tyron Woodley. So that's also clear. But yeah. So what I'm gonna see in this one is he top 10? I'm not gonna declare him top 10. I ain't made no list to say, oh, this guy's top 10, or this is my, I'm gonna have 6 names that I feel are for sure top 10s in my book. Your book could be anything else, however you want it to be. Khabib could be like number 1, he could be number 100, could be number 2,000. You could say Khabib not even valid enough to be on my top anything list. You could say that. So your opinion is your opinion, my opinion is my opinion, but we can discuss it, and I'm going to discuss in this video. Y'all can discuss it in the comment section. But first off, I'm going to rattle off 6 names that I feel for sure deserve top 10 spots in no particular order. So first off, Mighty Mouse, John Jones, Anderson Silva, Fedor, GSP, Aldo. So John Jones, Mighty Mouse, Anderson Silva, GSP, Fedor, Aldo. So those 6 people I feel definitely deserve a top 10 spot. So those 6 right there I feel deserve a top 10 spots. Now I'm gonna mention a bunch of other names in no particular order as well. Like, again, that order was not no particular order, but the 6 people I feel deserve a spot on the top 10 regardless. And now I'm gonna mention people that also can potentially deserve a top 10 spot. And you, like I said, you get some more names. Maybe you didn't think about these people's names, and now you can consider them potentially if you didn't already consider them for top 10 pound-for-pound all-time spots. So let's just start writing them out. Like Daniel Cormier, I just jump right into it. I say like. So yeah, so let's start off. Daniel Cormier, that's one. 2-weight division champion. I think his biggest drawback is that he was the number 2 in 2 divisions in his era to John Jones and to Stipe Miocic. Like I said, he could have beat Stipe Miocic and just rode off into the sunset, and we would never know that he could would eventually lose twice to Stipe Miocic in a row. And that could have been a different history. Like, he could have just left on top, and his pound status would have been higher than it is. Like, he probably would have been a clear top 10 pound spot. But the fact that he lost and lost again, it definitely raised his eyebrows and like, that spot ain't secured as much anymore. But 2-weight champion. As I said, he was number 2 to the guys. He also lost to 2 of the best guys of all time. He lost to John Jones, who's, unless you're doing the whole, if this guy did this guy did that, or if he failed this or popped this, then he's not on lists. But any other list, like the list that's going to really factor, John Jones got to factor very high in the list. So he lost to John Jones, one of the greatest of all time. He still has yet to lose legitimately. And then you got Stipe Miocic, who's the greatest UFC heavyweight of all time, so, and one of the greatest fighters himself of all time. And I think another person that's going to be in this potential top 10 list all time. So you got to consider him. And that's only 2 people he lost to. He was 1-2 against one of them, and he's 1 loss and 1 no contest against the other. So, and all those fights he gave both guys very good work. So, and got a win over Stipe Miocic and won. So, can't knock him too much for that. It'd be some decent names on his record and stuff. So, like, Cormier definitely deserves to be a potential candidate for top 10. Dan Henderson, one of the first. Well, I think he was the first. I mean, he did it before Conor McGregor. Dan Henderson did it before Conor McGregor, because he was a simultaneous 2-weight champion in Pride before he came over to UFC. And he had a lot of accolades, a lot of good wins, great Pride record, and maybe didn't pan out as much in the UFC, but did well in Strikeforce. So got some legendary wins over Fedor, wins over Wanderlei Silva, Rich Franklin, Antonio Rodrigo Nogueira. Like, as crazy as that sounds, as small as he was and how big Nogueira was, he had a win over him. So it's like, guy has a crazy solid record. You gotta rank Dan Henderson up in there. I don't think he's gonna be anybody real big pick to be in the top 10 all time pound, but gotta consider him. So I said Dan Cormier, Dan Henderson, Matt Hughes, the original Khabib. Khabib in reality is just a Dagestani Matt Hughes. So Matt Hughes in the modern era, Dagestani version. So body build the same, their skill set pretty much the same, strength the same. Yeah, he's just really a Dagestani Matt Hughes. That's what Khabib is. If you really look at it, like, you don't know who Matt Hughes is, and you kind of came in the Khabib, not Khabib era, but the Conor McGregor era, and you don't know these people, just really look at Matt Hughes, follow his career, not the end of his career. Follow, him in his prime, his peak, hit some of his big fights. The man really is Khabib before there was Khabib. Well, Khabib is Dagestani Matt Hughes. That's the reality. Matt Hughes came before. That's his predecessor, and that's who Khabib is. He's Dagestani Matt Hughes. Matt Hughes had like 7 or 8 title defenses. I think 5 in his first reign, 2 to 3 in his second reign, or like either way, he had a lot of title reigns, and he was prior to Anderson Silva in GSP. Before Anderson Silva had his 10 title defenses, I think before Anderson Silva was even a UFC champion, before GSP was even a UFC champion, because he had to beat him to become a UFC champion. And also, man, he got a win over GSP before he was a UFC champion. So, even before he did any of those things, or those guys did what they did, Matt Hughes was there with like 7 title defenses. So, he's not a guy that followed their blueprint. Like, they set the blueprint, even though Mighty Mouse has now surpassed them as far as consecutive title defenses. They set the blueprint that still a lot of these guys in the modern day follow. I don't think modern guys are necessarily trying to follow Mighty Mouse. They still really look at the benchmark in the style in the pattern and trends that Anderson Silva and GSP set in the UFC. That's who they're following. Yes, Mighty Mouse passed them, but they still, I feel, very much looking at what GSP and Anderson Silva did. No knock on Mighty Mouse, but they still following the trend that, again, Anderson Silva and GSP set. And you could say Matt Hughes did before them, but they pushed it and truly established it. And that's what a lot of people still following. And that's when people think about being a champion in the UFC, they think about what they really envision Anderson Silva and GSP for the most part. So, yeah, in their reign. But, yeah, Matt Hughes had like 7 defenses with 5, like I said, 5 in his first reign, like 2 or 3 in his next reign. And he did not fight no weak competition. He got for some real tough competition, beat some real tough competition, and didn't really shy from any competition. He fought all he could fight and still had a pretty stellar record. Again, got wins over GSP, prime GSP, and he got, well, you could say pre-prime, like right on the cusp of being prime GSP. And he got wins over Matt Hughes. I mean, not me. Got wins over BD Penn, Hayato Sakurai, and so much more. Like, the dude was a beast. Frank Trigg, etc. So Matt Hughes definitely got to go in that consideration. So Dan Henderson, Dan Cormier, Matt Hughes, and then now you got to go to number 4. I'm not saying I'm going to do a ranking. It's not even a ranking. This is throwing names out of my. But Wanley Silva, a name that's probably come as a shock to people. Like, Wanley Silva, wasn't that guy just like a scrappy, blood and guts guy? Like, why is he in the list? He shouldn't be in the list. But look at Wanley Silva. Like, Wanley Silva, at his time in Pride, fought in the toughest division in Pride. The number 1 organization at the time was Pride. So the number 1, his accomplishments are very much in Pride. And in Pride, at that time, Pride was the number 1 MMA organization at that time. The best fighters, all of that. Overall, the best fighters. What UFC is today, in a sense. Maybe not as clean and polished as a product and not connected to the mob necessarily as obvious as it was, the Pride was or whatnot, but yeah. Either way, number 1 organization at the time, and at that time, Wanley Silva had the most, in that organization, Wanley had the most wins, he had the most stoppages, and the most knockouts. So, most wins, most stoppages, most knockouts, most title defenses, and the first fighter in Pride to have a tournament title and a world title in Pride. So, first guy to do that. So, all of the accolades, and he fought in the toughest division in Pride, in the most legendary division in Pride. That Pride's middleweight division. That was the most legendary, most historic division in Pride history. So, you got to commend Wanley for it. And at no point was he the guy that was ducking phase. He was fighting everybody out there. So, and he still had a pretty stellar record. And again, like, a lot of title defense. I think he had like 4 title defense. Super crazy now when you compare it, but when you compare it back then, those guys weren't just sitting around defending belts. They were also hopping in tournaments that you could clearly see he was the first guy to have a world title, and held tournament title. So those guys were very active back in the Pride days. And that's another reason why by the time he got to UFC, he was not the same fighter, or he had worn down. But you could say his style is that, blah, blah, this evolved, and he would not be this, or this not be that in this era, or not. Stuff have passed by, but you don't rate people by, oh, would they do, how would they do this now, or how would do that? Like, some people, you could say that, oh, this guy would do well in this era, or this guy would be this and blah, blah. Like, some people transition historically that well, but we don't know. It's speculatory. Wanley could be, you could freeze Prime Wanderlei and put him in the UFC today, and he could knock everybody out potentially. I want to bet on that, but we don't know. It's all speculatory. But I think it's a good observation to say that the floor has definitely passed that Wanderlei behind, but nonetheless, you don't rate people based off, oh, how would he do in this era? You rate them all how they did in their own era. And even if you say people in the same era, you can't say, oh, he's above him because stylistically he would beat him, because somebody else stylistically could beat that guy that you saying would beat this guy. So, like, what did you accomplish? It always comes down to what did you accomplish, the opposition you fought. And I feel like Wanderlei has fought some crazy level opposition. Huh? Toughest weight class, most notable weight class in Pride as well, and had all those accolades in that weight class, and some even outside that weight class. So, Wanderlei is a beast and definitely should be considered. Like, if he was in the UFC and had those accolades, people be saying, like, without a doubt, he would be first ballot top 10. Like, the man would be in top 10 without a doubt. But because it's not UFC, and because, like, what the UFC did and whatever, however their propaganda, like, it's kind of not seen as such. So when I see a lot of top 10 lists, I don't see Wanderlei on that at all. So, but he should be considered. So now let's get some more recent names. Dominic Cruz, he had like 4 title defenses in total, I believe. He had like 2 in WEC and like 2 in the UFC. Wins over Cruz. Win over Dillashaw, and wins over Mighty Mouse. Wins over Faber, and etc. etc. Wins over Benavidez, and the man is the greatest bantamweight of all time. So definitely should be in consideration. 4 title defenses, and wins over very notable fighters. Most importantly, being Mighty Mouse, who is for sure I gave him a guaranteed spot in top 10 on my top 10 list. But so Dominic Cruz should be considered. Kamaru Usman should be considered for top 10. Alexander Volkanovski should be considered. All he's doing right now. I still feel like, as far as like really solidifying his spot, especially if you consider like you're gonna do this as a straight comparison Khabib versus Volkanovski. But Volkanovski's best win is Max Holloway, and Poirier, a person that Khabib already beat, has 2 wins over Holloway. It's MMA math, but nonetheless, I feel like it's not like Volkanovski has the most defenses yet either. I think he has about 3 defenses right now, 3 or 4 defenses right now. So if he go up and win that belt, or continue establishing, like keep doing what he's doing, I definitely think he could get a good spot on the top 10. And I already think right now he can deserve a top 10 spot. But if he, like I say, he could keep doing what he's doing, he only going to further move up that ranking. And if you do a Khabib versus Volkanovski comparison, I feel like he needs to come up, win that belt. Then I could say, oh, push him over Khabib. Or if he maybe he gets 3-4 more defenses, or depending on how they are, or 2, 1, I'm gonna say 2 to 3 defenses, or go up and get a build out that higher weight class. I definitely could see him pass on Khabib on my list. That has not fully been established yet, but so Volkanovski definitely consideration. Kamaru Usman got all the defense he has, and he was a pretty stellar champ. He just got caught, but Kamaru Usman could definitely be in there. One loss don't deter you from being this or being that. Like, his compliments are still there, so Usman should still be in that consideration. The top 10, Volk could be considered for that top 10, and that's probably Stipe Miocic should be considered as well. Greatest UFC heavyweight all champion. I think I probably said this in the video, but I don't know. I made this video already, but then got interrupted and had to restart over. So I don't know if I said it, but Stipe, if I haven't said it, I'm gonna say it again. Stipe Miocic is if I said it, I'm gonna say it again. If I haven't said it in this video, now I'm gonna say it now. Stipe Miocic should be considered 3 title defenses, with 2-time champion, and 3 consecutive title defenses, which is the record for the UFC heavyweight division, I think. Or was it like he get 4? But nonetheless, 3 or 4. Now I'm gonna throw in 2 final names, and then I'm gonna wrap it up, just kind of talking about Khabib a little bit and his ranking and his position all time in history. So 2 final names. They both kind of come as shockers: Chuck Liddell and Shinya Aoki. Chuck Liddell, like, another name people don't really consider for all-time great. Like, the modern era has completely kind of just flushed people out, just kind of left these guys like they're icons, but like, they ain't all that great. They ain't this, they ain't that. Similar to Randy Couture, like, they ain't all that, ain't all that. That's what pretty much people in the modern day are. They either don't know them, they don't care for them, or they don't really rate them all that high. And even people probably from the era, like, hey, people got better. Chuck Liddell ain't this, Chuck Liddell ain't that, but just going based off legacy, like Chuck Liddell definitely holds up in the modern era. His resume definitely holds up in case like, oh, he fought Lunchman #2, he fought Jobber #3. He didn't. Like Chuck Liddell definitely tested himself, and Chuck Liddell definitely fought some good competition. Like wins over Tito Ortiz, who had the most, still has one of the greater UFC reigns and heavy period. Not just one of the greater ones at a weight class, one of the greater ones period. As far as defenses, he has one of the lengthier title defenses, which was 5, and he had held the title defense records for a long time. Tito Ortiz was a very solid fighter, and even managed to pick up some wins in the later stage of his career. But yeah. So 2 wins over Tito, 2 wins over Randy Couture. So 2 over Tito, 2 over Randy Couture. Knocked out Alistair Overeem. Knocked out Babalu Soberall. Like, dude got some wins on the record, and he got like 4 title defenses himself. So Chuck Liddell definitely a name that should be considered top 10 all time, or at least put in the mix. Is he for sure top 10 all time? He definitely got an argument. And then now Shinya Aoki, the man was relevant for feel like 3 decades. It feel like Shinya Aoki, like lightweight, featherweight. I think he even fought at bandweight at one point. Shinya Aoki for some stellar competition and fought him over multiple weight classes and won belts in multiple different organizations. Like the man's a beast and definitely should be considered. And at one point, it was never like, I feel like at one point he was definitely the best lightweight at one point, or at least 1A, 1B with a lot of different people. I think at one point it was for BJ Penn, he was considered like the 1A, 1B or the number 2 behind BJ Penn at one point for a good point. A fight that never happened. That would have been beautiful to see that happen in their primes. And then I think he was kind of behind Gilbert Melendez and Eddie Alvarez. Or he was above Gilbert Melendez and Eddie Alvarez. Like he beat Eddie Alvarez, but then Eddie Alvarez went on to beat him and get that win back. And Gilbert Melendez went on to get a win over as well. Then he kind of got pushed behind them. Then he kind of draw weight and whatnot. But nonetheless, Shinya Aoki, who's a beast, has a lot of wins. His record is almost look like something out of a comic book. Like the man has been around for a lot of people, and definitely a guy that has a resume and the skill to be considered to be top 10 all time pound for pound, or at least considered for sure, without doubt, deserve to be considered. Does he deserve necessarily to have a spot? But consider, we don't know. But consideration, without doubt, the man deserves to be considered. Same with Chuck Liddell. And like I say, there's some other people could throw in the name mix, but I think that's about all the people I could think of right now. Or as far as just a little bit of research, but and a little bit of digging through the brain, digging off top. But yeah, it's some more names for sure. I'm definitely gonna get some more names, but I know some good names to at least consider for now. And y'all could like throw some more names in there potentially. And maybe I just like I said, a future video will be me making a legit list, or at least a legit list for me, like me really evaluating it to make a list of a top 10 all time list MMA. Not just UFC, but all time list MMA. But yeah, now as far as Khabib, I feel like Khabib left too early. But yeah, Khabib retired too early. He that affects his ranking all time as well. Like he could be the greatest lightweight of all time and whatnot. But as far as all time, being regardless of weight class, he knows it's a deterrent. I mean, it's a factor that's going to weigh against him retiring too early. But I think he's happier that he won a good record. I think he's like 30, or whatever, 32, whatever the case may be. And probably this amount of defense. I think he probably was one shot of the defenses he wanted. But he retired on top. He retired with his wits about him. He didn't retire all worn down. He didn't fight and take some L's that he probably didn't need to take or nothing. He probably could have got some more. Definitely got some more W's potentially. We would feel like with the trajectory he was on, you would feel like, oh, he probably could have went on, at least got 3 more title defenses, probably 6 defenses, and definitely would have had an even better claim to being an all-time great. I mean, he is all-time great, but a better claim to being an all-time great, probably would have easily, without a doubt, ranked higher. But he's happy with it where he left off. So he's content with it, and I don't think he goes around considering himself the greatest all time or boasting to be the greatest all time. So he knows it, and he's aware of it, but it definitely is a deterrent. I mean, it definitely is a factor against him as far as all the way. It's kind of like a question, like, you want to come to sport, don't you want to be the best you could possibly be and test yourself as much as you can, instead of just coming in like, oh, I did good enough, I was great, I feel I was the best of all time. I mean, I feel I was the best at my era, I guess, and I left. But don't you want to be like set a precedent or set a benchmark that people gonna have to really struggle to get over and aspire to surpass, instead of kind of set a low bar. Like, I mean, excellence wise, great bar. But as far as just the resume, the bar is pretty low, to be honest. It's 3 defenses. I mean, hey, ain't nobody just going out there just winning 3 defenses and whatnot. But compared to some other people, the other legacies other people left, it's definitely not the hardest one to overcome. I guess is what I'm trying to say. But dude's a solid fighter, solid resume, but just being undefeated don't overcome actually going out and doing, because we just rely on being undefeated and being this, being that. A lot of your greatness is speculatory, like, oh, he would do this to that person, instead of a guy that actually went out there, win or lose, and did the thing more often than not, versus a guy who went out there, he did the thing every single time, but he didn't look to test himself further and to really clear all that doubt, and more so just left his greatness to speculation. You can go with the guy that actually did it. The guy that got like 10 defenses, but like ended with a 5, like 28-5, versus a guy that's ended 32-0, but most of those other fights were like probably 20 of those fights were against tomato cans, and probably 5 of those were against decent guys, or something like that. I don't know. 10 of them were against decent guys, however you want to do the math with that. Yeah, like you're gonna go with the guy that actually fought the best competition. And like the same goes in boxing. Like one of my favorite, matter of fact, my favorite boxing of the past 20 years was Andre Ward, and I feel similar to Khabib, he retired too early. He just like Khabib, they both became pound for pound number one, and then like immediately retired. Like they became solidified pound for pound number one. Like Floyd had retired and like for good, and Andre Ward took a big step up. Sealed the door shut on Kovalev by stopping him in the second round. I mean, not the second round, stopping him in the second fight, and had been solidified himself as a pound for pound number one. Khabib, like I think John Jones did what he had to do. I mean, John Jones hadn't been fighting at that point, or hadn't been looking good. Yeah, John Jones had not been looking good. And some other people had lost. So now Khabib's time was be, the symbol assumed to the top spot. And like he just had a spectacular performance over Gaethje, and then he retired immediately after. So both guys are tired at their best, but that's good and all. But Andre Ward was my favorite fighter of the past 20 years. But you didn't push it further. Like I feel like he could have. Obviously he knows. Khabib could have pushed further, but obviously he knows. I feel like Khabib definitely could have pushed it further without no question. I feel like he was on a dominant streak, so I continue. Andre Ward was, still probably probably the most technical fighter out there at his time, but probably behind Floyd, but the most technical fighter out there of his time. But his body was wearing down. He didn't have the legs as much anymore, so I think his reason was more so valid. But for like Khabib, like he wasn't really losing a step. He just kind of left. I guess his mom said he should retire. His dad passed away, but either way, I feel like both guys could accomplish more, could have extended themselves further, and being undefeated and leaving things to speculation, not alone going to be able to carry them to the very top of these rankings. Like I feel like Andre Ward is one of the greatest fighters of all time, but it definitely hurts him that he did not fully test himself as much as he could, and didn't get other stuff. But also he had legal stuff as well. But because boxing is very political with MMA, it's politics involved, but it's still very much you just win. You're gonna fight everybody you need to fight. At least everybody relevant you need to fight. Get to the belts, defend the belts. There's some politics still, but ain't the same level of boxing politics, is all I'm saying. But nonetheless, 2 guys that retired on top, but didn't push it further and could have had to extend their legacy. And obviously, that both really keeps both of those guys from ever really being considered for the greatest of all time. They're some of the greatest of all time, but clearly not the greatest of all times. And clearly did not test their potential to the fullest of their ability, like to be, as great as they could be. Left without getting to that point. Showed glimmers of it, but still left much of it to speculation, and that's going to be a doc. And that's all I'm going to say for Khabib. Khabib's a solid fighter, but he knows he's not in that probably top 3, top 4, top 5 spots. But he's very content with it, and nonetheless had a stellar career, and definitely, at the very least, a consideration for a top 10 all time. But what do you guys think? Do you think he's top 10 all time? Do you think he's in there? Do you think he's in there? Do you think he's not? Do you think he's, like I said, top 10? Or is he not top 10? Definitely deserves to be considered, but is he top 10 or is he not top 10? What's your determination? My determination, maybe another video, but right now I'm going to leave it very vague. But what I will say is he is in consideration. But do I have him in my top 10? My top 10 has not yet been charted out. So it's still very much, but y'all give y'all's top 10. As I said in the little community post, now in the video, leave your top 10s in the comment section below. And that's the video. Thanks for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, and come back for more videos. Peace. Peace.